Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. And wow, what a weekend and Monday we're having. Just so much that we got to talk about and break down. So you sit back, relax, hit that like button and let YouTube know you love these big daily dives into the news. And let's just jump into it.
This is a news show.
So first up today, this is one of the most requested stories from y'all over on the text line. Let's talk about the Christian boycott, backlash, and protest around the Olympics. Because where we are today is that the organizers of the Olympics have now officially apologized to Christians who were offended by a performance during the opening ceremony that some alleged was a parody of the Last Supper. Or that important moment in Christianity most famously depicted in a painting by Leonardo da Vinci. You know, with that, you can see the resemblance between the performance and the painting, with a key difference, at least according to critics, being that instead of the apostles gathered around Jesus, it was drag queens. And then on top of that, you had a singer dressed up as the Greek god of wine. So that aired, and all of a sudden you had a lot of outrage among Catholics, other Christians, and all types of conservative politicians and personalities around the world. Elon Musk, for example, claiming the performance was, quote, extremely disrespectful to Christians. You also had Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, say, last night's mockery of the Last Supper was shocking and insulting to Christian people around the world who watched the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. Hell, you even had Andrew Tate coming out and saying he's boycotting the Olympics because of the whole thing. Also attacking the director of the ceremony for being gay and Jewish, writing, the opening ceremony planned and orchestrated by a gay Jew was disgusting. And then with that, sharing a nearly 9-minute rant about how the performance made a mockery of Christianity.
How are you not angry by what they've just done? They've openly mocked your entire religion from head to toe. One of the most sacred images throughout all of Western civilization, the Last Supper. They mocked it. Are any of you gonna do anything after the most blatant mocking, probably in history, of Jesus Christ? They wouldn't dare do it to Judaism, and they wouldn't dare do it to Islam. They would not dare. They mock Christians because you're endlessly weak, endlessly forgiving.
And actually with that, you saw Tate and his brother stage a small protest in front of the French embassy in Romania. But in any case, right, all of this backlash led to this moment during a press conference where you had a spokesperson for the Games say, there was clearly never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think we tried to celebrate community, tolerance. We believe this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we're of course really sorry. But with all that, here's the thing. This whole performance that so many people got upset about, reportedly, it didn't actually have anything to do with Christianity at all. Right? Reportedly, it wasn't a parody of the Last Supper. It was actually based on a whole different painting called The Feast of the Gods, with that being a painting depicting a group of Greek gods on Mount Olympus for a banquet. And in fact, if you go back to the day of the opening ceremony, the official Olympics account actually posted on Twitter explaining how the, quote, interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus makes us aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. So you had that right out the gate. And you also had the artistic director behind the opening ceremony insisting the Last Supper was not the inspiration behind the scenes, saying we wanted to talk about diversity. Diversity means being together. We wanted to include everyone, as simple as that. And adding that, quote, you will never find in me or in my work any desire of mocking anyone. But now, you know, the reality is you have this situation where you have people arguing that the irony of this performance is that it's now potentially put people in real danger, with people pointing to Barbara Butch, for example, a French DJ and LGBTQ activist who was in the performance, saying through a statement from her lawyer that she's been threatened with death, torture, and rape. Also saying they've been targeted with numerous anti-Semitic, homophobic, sexist, and fatphobic insults. Also with that, announcing that she'll take legal action against people who seek to intimidate her. And so with all that, you know, one, I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts regarding that whole controversy and scandal? But then also two, while you're maybe leaving that comment, I want to talk about another big thing that's going down with the Olympics, and it's about the concern around security. Because I mean, just today, there's been what's been described as another act of major sabotage in France, with this one being against fiber optic networks, and according to the police, it affected at least 6 of France's administrative departments. And notably, this includes the city of Marseille, which is hosting football and sailing competitions for the Olympics. Also, the reason I say another attack is because on Friday, we saw French rail lines disrupted by coordinated sabotage ahead of the opening ceremony, with arsonists targeting installations along high-speed rail lines connecting Paris with the country's west, north, and east. And even though rail workers happened upon one of the teams of saboteurs in the middle of the night and chased them away, 3 other attacks were successful. And they have had a massive impact. I mean, around 250,000 passengers were affected on Friday. And I mean, by the time the traffic returned to normal this morning, around 800,000 customers had faced disruption. And so with that, you had France's transport minister saying, 1, the cost of the attacks would very probably amount to millions of euros, and 2, that considerable resources have been put into place to strengthen the surveillance of the 5,000 miles of the high-speed rail network, with the state-owned rail operator describing it as a massive attack on a large scale to paralyze the network. The country's interior minister also described the attack as very precise and extremely well targeted. You also had the head of the region that includes Paris and its surrounding areas saying clearly this attack is not a coincidence, saying it aimed to destabilize France at the moment the Olympic and Paralympic Games are launched. And as far as who is behind these attacks, I mean, there's no shortage of speculation, I can say that. You have the Israeli foreign minister claiming the sabotage of railway infrastructure across France ahead of the Paris 2024 Olympics was planned and executed under the influence of Iran's axis of evil and radical Islam. Though really, it seems like most people's money is on Russia, right? Especially as France has been one of several European countries impacted by a wave of sabotage attacks that have been linked by officials to Russia. I mean, back in April, you had the French president saying he had no doubt Russia would target the Olympics this summer. In fact, with that, French authorities have recently arrested a Russian citizen in Paris, accusing him of preparing destabilizing events during the Olympics. But also, this is a key thing, at least with the railway attack, we saw the interior minister suggesting that far-left activists were behind it, telling French TV, "This is the traditional mode of action of the far left. We must be careful. The question is whether they were manipulated or it is for their own benefit. There are people who can approach this movement." And in fact, today, you had authorities arresting an alleged far-left extremist, someone who reportedly had access to keys to the railway operators' facilities, tools, and far-left literature. But then at the same time, you had officials saying it was unconnected to the disruption on Friday, with them also adding that no one has been arrested so far in the investigation into the arson attacks. And so with that, you had the interior minister warning against jumping to conclusions because the perpetrators could have been manipulated, with of course the unsaid thing there being by Russia. But of course, all of this is a developing situation. There are investigations, more information to come, and so we'll have to wait and see. And then, in big internet drama news, let's talk about Cody being in the news for 3 reasons. Right, the first of which we've already talked about, and it's led to the other 2 updates, but you had Tana Mojo accusing him of having sex with her when she was 17 and he was 25. But then those allegations spreading further and further across the internet, there's been mounting pressure for him to speak about the situation. All of that leading to then the second headline that Cody mid-silence performed a DJ set in Vegas, which despite the drunken fist pumping that happened there, did not go over well on the internet. So all of that led us to headline number 3, that Cody finally addressed the Tana Mojo allegations. Kind of. With him over the weekend loosely touching on it in a memo to employees of his podcast network, Tiny Meat Gang Studios. With that memo signed by him as well as co-founder Noel Miller, saying, "We wanted to let you know that Cody will not be involved in the day-to-day operations at TMG Studios. What has transpired over the past few weeks is a personal issue for him, and Cody wants to remove any effect this is having on your professional and personal lives and the work you and other hosts have done to make TMG Studios so successful." Also saying, "We know it's been a very strenuous few weeks for everyone, and we really appreciate your willingness to bear with us." And adding that Noel will lead the team going forward. Right, and so there are a few things to mention there. 1, that message was also shared with paid subscribers at TMG. 2, it obviously didn't mention Tana by name, or Cody didn't actually say anything about the actual allegations, just discussing his position at the company. 3, that statement has gotten some backlash, though for a few different reasons. Right, some think that it was wrong for him to put this behind a paywall, accusing him of trying to minimize the press around it. Though there, you have others pointing out that non-subscribers can view that statement, but they would need the link to it, and only subscribers could see the comments. Though of course, others have countered that the point still stands that it was posted on a subscriber platform, not a public-facing social media account where it would gain viral attention. We also saw some take issue with the fact that more concrete action wasn't taken, or with people pointing out that it just says he won't be involved in day-to-day operations, but it doesn't go as far to say that he's out of the company. And so you had people saying things like, Cody is clearly still involved, but just not in the public view of things. And saying continuing to support them in their podcast is continuing to support Cody. What a lame response. Though of course this is, you also had others saying, they don't want to hurt the other podcasts that are in this network or the other talent. But then also, notably regarding this aspect, you had outlets like NBC News noting that this comes as the Emergency Intercom podcast, which TMG acquired back in May. They actually left the network around a week ago as the claims against Cody were blowing up. Right, so there's been a lot of speculation there. Also, notably, Cody's lost 270,000 YouTube subscribers in the last 30 days. And if you hop to his Instagram, it's flooded with comments saying his silence has been too loud. And all of it seeming like this situation and the pressure Cody's facing, it may be far from over. Well, that silence for many people has been a massive strike against Cody. You also have others pointing to things like Time Magazine, previously speaking to a communications professor at the University of Southern California about all this. And she said, he's in a very complex and very threatening legal situation right now. Because of the immediacy of the digital age, people want immediate comments, reactions, atonement, and accountability. And saying the people that we're demanding these statements from have to listen to their lawyers first about whether or not making any statement would cause them either legal peril or amplify the scandal. Right? And so with all this, with different corners of the internet saying different things, I want to pass the question off to you with where we are right now. What are your thoughts and feelings with everything that we've seen, this response, and what you think's forthcoming? And then, I've never felt healthier than the last 2 years, bro. And you know what? He was right. Since taking Armra colostrum, I really have felt better. So thank you, Armra colostrum, not only for sponsoring today's show, but because you really made a difference for me. Because colostrum is a dairy bioactive whole food produced by all mammals in the first 48 to 72 hours after giving birth, containing vital, powerful nutrients our bodies need to thrive. And Armra colostrum is physician founded and delivers the power of colostrum optimized for the human body. Right? It's delivered in a digestible form of 400 plus functional nutrients like peptides, antibodies, and antioxidants that support your cells, gut, immune system, and so much more. And it works by strengthening your body's internal guard against environmental threats, and I've noticed my immune system staying strong despite being around my germy kids. Plus, an added bonus, I also feel like I've noticed leaner muscle mass, decreased muscle soreness, and overall quicker workout recovery, which has definitely been nice because I recently started weight training. That's really where I've noticed it the most, in my post-recovery time and really just my overall health. I just pour this into cold water or even my smoothie, sip, enjoy, and let it go to work. So head to tryarmra.com/DeFranco to level up your health and use code DeFranco at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Just click that link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. And then, so let's talk about this controversy around Trump, Christians, and voting. Right, and all of this is centered around comments that he made at the Believers Summit in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's this gathering of Christians organized by the conservative group Turning Point Action, and I'll just let you listen.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You gotta get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again.
And actually, importantly here, I want you to listen to that last part, but with another added 2 seconds.
You gotta get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not gonna have to vote.
Okay, so the reason I played the first clip and then added a little bit with the last 2 seconds is, depending where you went online, there have been different versions posted. And according to some of Trump's defenders, those 2 extra seconds are the difference between the clip being Trump saying he's gonna be a dictator and apparently something else. With the Trump campaign, for example, claiming that the former president's words were actually about how he would unite the country, with a spokesperson for the campaign specifically saying he, quote, was talking about uniting this country and bringing prosperity to every American as opposed to the divisive political environment that has sowed so much division and even resulted in an assassination attempt. But then this also, as other Republicans gave different explanations, where you had New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, for example, saying it didn't mean anything. But then he also said, I think he was just trying to make a hyperbolic point that it can be fixed as long as he gets back into office and all that. You also then had Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton say, I think he's obviously making a joke about how bad things had been under Joe Biden and how good they'll be if we send President Trump back to the White House so we can turn the country around. And then finally, you had childless cat lady Lindsey Graham laughing it off, saying,
Senator, just a minute here, quickly. Yeah. Democrats say the former president is trying to take the reins of the entire democratic system here with these comments. You're laughing. What do you believe he's trying to say? What's the truth?
He's trying to tell the Christian community and anybody else who's listening the nightmare that we're experiencing will soon be over. Give me 4 more years and I'm going to right this ship called America and pass it on to the next generation.
So of course, all of this is we're seeing the Democrats saying that Trump should be taken at his word. With, for example, Adam Schiff, a California congressman who's now running for Senate, sharing the clip on X and writing, this year, democracy is on the ballot, and if we are to save it, we must vote against authoritarianism. Here, Trump helpfully reminds us that the alternative is never having the chance to vote again. You also had the Harris campaign calling Trump's remarks a vow to end democracy, and saying when Vice President Harris says the election is about freedom, she means it. And adding, our democracy is under assault by criminal Donald Trump. After the last election Trump lost, he sent a mob to overturn the result. And saying this campaign, he has promised violence if he loses, the end of our election if he wins, and the termination of the Constitution to empower him to be a dictator to enact his dangerous Project 2025 agenda on America. And then, of course, a list of reactions just go on and on. But I mean, I guess with that, I want to pass the question off to you. 1, what are your thoughts on those comments in general? And 2, do you think the extra 2 seconds changes anything of what he was saying? Let me know what you're thinking and why. And then President Biden, who, by the way, contrary to what a shocking number of right-wing weirdos on Twitter were claiming, has not been body snatched by a person taller than President Biden, he is in the news because he proposed historic sweeping changes to the Supreme Court. And we've absolutely got to talk about it because it's a move that marks a major shift for the president, who has long been resistant to efforts to reform the high court. But now, in an op-ed published in the Washington Post this morning, you had Biden taking aim at decisions made by the ultra-conservative Supreme Court in recent years. And in particular, the court's new immunity ruling, with him writing that America was founded on the principle that no one is above the law. But with that, saying the Supreme Court's immunity ruling means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do, and adding, if a future president incites a violent mob to storm the Capitol and stop the peaceful transfer of power like we saw on January 6, 2021, there may be no legal consequences, and that's only the beginning. With him then also continuing, on top of dangerous and extreme decisions that overturn settled legal precedents, including Roe v. Wade, the court is mired in a crisis of ethics, and specifically pointing to scandals involving undisclosed gifts and conflicts of interest with January 6 insurrectionists. And so you had Biden going on to call for 3 major reforms. Regarding the Supreme Court, the president called for term limits for justices on the high court, saying that he supports a system where the president would appoint a justice every 2 years, years to spend 18 years in active service on the Supreme Court, saying this will allow the court's membership to change more regularly, make nominations more predictable, and reduce the chance that any single presidency radically alters the makeup of the court for generations to come. Beyond that, Biden also called for a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court, by saying that the court's current voluntary ethics code is weak because it's self-enforcing. Clearly, they're doing a shit job of self-enforcing. And they are claiming that justices should be forced to disclose gifts, abstain from engaging in public political activity, and recuse themselves from cases where they have conflicts of interest, pointing out that every other federal judge is bound by an enforceable code of conduct. Right? And the final reform that Biden's actually calling for doesn't directly impact the court itself, but targets the immunity ruling directly, with him specifically calling for a constitutional amendment called the No One is Above the Law Amendment that, quote, would make clear that there is no immunity for crimes a former president committed while in office, and arguing there that the founders believe that the president's power is limited, and adding, we are a nation of laws, not of kings or dictators. And with that said, as far as what happens from here, Biden's expected to talk about his proposals more in a speech in Austin later today, commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. So obviously, I'm going to keep an eye open for that, but regardless of what he says there, Biden's efforts, they're going to face a major uphill battle. For any changes to the court regarding term limits and ethics reform, it's going to have to go through Congress. And that's, of course, going to be a tall order given the GOP controls the House and Democrats have such a slim majority in the Senate. And then the immunity question would be even harder because a constitutional amendment requires approval by 2/3 of both chambers of Congress, or a convention of 2/3 of the states, followed by approval from 3/4 of state legislatures. But with all that said, right, even if these proposals might be doomed because of the current politicians in Congress, just seeing Biden make these demands, it's absolutely enormous because it shows that a US president supports major reforms to our broken Supreme Court. And a number of the things that he has proposed are widely supported by the American public, like term limits for the justices. For several years now, 2/3 of the American public have supported that. And it especially matters there when you have the White House saying that Kamala Harris also supports these proposals, meaning that she could push for them if she wins the election in November. You know, if that happened, as well as the makeup of Congress changed up based off of the voting, I mean, these proposed alterations for the Supreme Court, they could gain some traction. But for now, we'll have to wait to see what happens. But of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. And then we've got more social media and controversy news, with two kind of quickies, starting with Selena Gomez. Because Selena Gomez wants you to stop talking about her face. And actually, all of this starts with a plastic surgeon assistant by the name of Marissa, who posts videos on TikTok about plastic surgery. And specifically, she used to post videos speculating on what work different celebrities may have gotten. And last year, when asked to make a video about Selena Gomez, she said,
I literally have no idea what she has gotten done. I think she has been through so much in her life, especially medically related, so I don't think it's fair to speculate. I literally have no idea what to attribute her physical changes to. People say lupus, people say other things. I don't know, and at the end of the day, let's just leave her be.
But in the comments, people were like, cool story, let's play our own guessing game. And you had tons of people speculating about her apparent facial changes. But then all of this conversation getting reignited over the weekend when Selena commented on the video herself, writing, honestly, I hate this. I was on stripes because of flare-up, I have Botox, that's it, leave me alone. And as for what she meant by stripes, a lot of assume that she meant steroids, which can be used to treat lupus. And this then prompting Marissa to respond.
I agree with you. I do think that we should leave you alone, and I said that in the video. I totally understand you still like not appreciating it.
And adding there that she doesn't know if Selena's response was addressed at her or the comments or just the general speculation, and then adding,
you don't owe it to anyone to like tell us why you don't look the same as what you did when you were a teenager or like in your 20s. Any before and after that I like have posted of celebrities and stuff, like I try to do it with so much grace and to not like tear people down. That is never, ever, ever my intention when it comes to it. And it's also why I stopped doing it, because I think people thought my intentions were elsewhere.
With Selena then responding, I love you, not about you, I just get sad sometimes. And so ultimately, I think this story serves again as a reminder of, one, you never know what people are going through. Two, regardless of if someone's a celebrity or not, remember they are a human being with feelings. And three, speculating and just talking about how someone looks 24/7 is a good way to fuck with those feelings. So selfishly, I do need to add an asterisk to this story. To the gays and the bros who have been nothing short but fantastic and hyping me up since day one of my health journey, thank you. Keep it up. You have been the driving force behind my progress and will be the reason that I will just be fucking insufferable in several months when I have some meaningful mass. I mean, I posted this morning and we're not even 2 weeks into weight training. I'm sorry in advance. So also on the note of muscles, let's talk about Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. To Ryan, that's right, Hugh Jackman gets top billing. Because Deadpool and Wolverine is in the news for just crushing at the box office, bringing in $211 million domestically over the weekend, making it the highest opening for an R-rated film, and it's not even close, with a record previously held by the original Deadpool from 2016, which brought in $133 million. And in fact, Deadpool and Wolverine had the 6th highest domestic opening weekend of all time, which is a big deal for a number of reasons, including outlets noting that it takes Marvel out of a box office slump. And again, this is with us only talking about domestic numbers, because globally it brought in $440 million. With Ryan Reynolds even telling The Hollywood Reporter that Disney probably doesn't want me to frame it this way, but I've always thought of Deadpool and Wolverine as the first 4-quadrant R-rated film. With the outlet there noting that it had way more viewers under 17 than an R-rated film usually attracts. But this news also comes as there's a bit of a controversy in the Marvel universe, right? Because you have a lot of people excited and a lot of people pissed off about the return of Robert Downey Jr. Because we got the news over the weekend that he is coming back to the MCU, but not as Iron Man, instead as Doctor Doom, the villain in the upcoming Avengers movie. Because while the announcement got huge applause at Comic-Con, online the responses were mixed. Some just so excited, interested in how they're gonna pull this off, though for others, they said it killed any hope they had for the movie. And people saying things like, the way the MCU has completely reduced itself to cash grabs and nostalgia with no sense of creativity has to be studied, as well as this has to be the saddest thing in American culture. One of my favorite comments being made all across social media is people replying, "Till you're 90," which will make sense if you watch Deadpool and Wolverine. But for now, we'll have to wait to see if Robert Downey Jr. coming back is a win or a loss. But who wins here? Definitely Robert Downey Jr. I can't even imagine how many zeros are in that check they're writing for him. But then, y'all, let's take a quick break from the news and talk about what really matters, me shilling some shit to you. Though luckily for you, it's the best shit. Right? Because one, a new fantastic drop just went live over at beautifulbastard.com. And two, just a little thank you. If you snag something in the next 24 hours using code PDS10, you can get 10% off. And that's on everything, including our best sellers like the Emotionally Exhausted Flowers gear, as well as the OG Tanks and Tees, the Unburdened Tanks and Tees, Embrace Change gear, as well as, again, all the other goodness on the site. So yeah, beautifulbastard.com, PDS10 for the next 24 hours for 10% off. And that's it for Shill Up DeFranco. Back to your regularly scheduled news. And then Venezuela's socialist leader, President Nicolas Maduro, just robbed an election. And that's according to an overwhelming number of Venezuelans and governments around the world. You see, yesterday was Venezuela's presidential election, and it pitted Maduro versus little-known opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. And officially, Maduro secured 51% of the vote. And this was both paradoxically both a massive shock and the expected result. You see, on one hand, early exit polls and photos from ballot counters indicated that Gonzalez, he had a healthy lead. But on the other hand, most felt deep down that Maduro and his party, they weren't gonna let go of power. And while you'd think that after decades of stolen elections, Venezuela would be used to it, I mean, this time it was a particularly bitter pill to swallow. That's because there was hope, right? And that can be infectious and powerful, but also devastating when it's ripped away. One of the reasons for the hope is there was this general sentiment that things would be different this time. There was this real air that people were just done with Maduro. I mean, literally, millions of Venezuelans have fled the country because of how bad things have gotten. And generally speaking, the only people still left are those who have no means to get out or who have the money to ignore the country's problem. I mean, people were so fucking fired up to get rid of Maduro that they lined up at the polls before the sun was even out. And again, the exit polling indicated that it was gonna be a landslide victory for Edmundo. It looked like the opposition had it in the bag despite previous attempts by the government to swing the election. I mean, for example, the only reason the relatively unknown Gonzalez was even running was because the main leader of the opposition, Maria Corina Machado, was banned from doing so. Though that also wasn't the only election interference we saw. There were widespread reports that Maduro-aligned groups and gangs went around intimidating and disrupting voters. In extreme cases, they even allegedly stole entire ballot boxes and refused to let people audit them, which is allowed under the law. And how it normally works is that the Central Electoral Commission, they get digital reports of each polling machine and use those to declare a winner. But anyone is allowed to check that their local results were correct by requesting a paper receipt from their local machines, including on the election day itself. The big problem, though, is that polling officials across the country, they weren't letting people audit the results. They just flat out refused to print them out. And so it's because of all this that no one was particularly shocked that many hours after polls closed, the Electoral Commission, which unsurprisingly is chaired by an ally of Maduro, said that the president had won 51% of the vote. And as far as Gonzalez, they said he got 44% and the third-party candidates got 4.6%, which also, if you dabble in mathin', you know, is over 100% somehow. So that also unsurprisingly got mocked online. But also a potential reason for that is the result apparently was based on 80% of all the votes being counted. So you had some saying, you know, there's some flexibility in the numbers based off of how widely things could trend. But again, all that said, even if everyone knew that this was gonna be how the election played out, it didn't make it any easier to accept, with there being no shortage of Venezuelans online absolutely furious with the results. Like, for example, here's YouTuber Joanna Hausman, who is from Venezuela, reacting to the announcement that Maduro somehow got 51% of the vote.
Qué mentirosos son estos recontra mamagüeos.
And honestly, that's been the general sentiment all around. Although notably, world leaders, with their words, they're being far more diplomatic. Or you have leaders in Latin America refusing to recognize the results, including former fans of Maduro, like Chile's current far-left president. And closer to home, you have U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying that America had, quote, serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people. Some have also said that this looks bad for the Biden administration, which agreed last year to ease up on sanctions against the Maduro regime in return for, quote, free and fair elections. Critics at the time saying that it was obvious that was never going to happen, and instead it just bought the regime some time. However, the reality is that those sanctions were already reimposed earlier this year because Maduro wouldn't hold up his end of the bargain. So it's not like the US had high expectations going into Sunday's election. But with all that said, the big question now is what happens from here? Well, there's a widespread expectation that there's going to be demonstrations in the streets over the election as the opposition's claiming it won the election. But also, I say that where, as of recording, things almost seem too calm right now, with even many feeling like this is the calm before the storm. And with whatever happens, you just hope that it doesn't turn into a bloodbath, because we're talking about a regime that has shown that it is more than willing to use deadly force. But that, my friends, is the end of your Monday evening, Tuesday morning dive into the news. But of course, as always, you don't have to worry about missing my stupid face for too long, because I'll be right back here tomorrow. I love yo faces, and I'll see you then.